We begin with breaking news in Dallas, Texas, where at least 5 police officers were killed when they were ambushed by at least 2 snipers.
Shots fired, officer down.
We got a guy with a long rifle. We don't know where the hell he's at.
SWAT officers on floor 2. They're taking fire with the suspect shooting at police.
Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon.
In our news today, the cold-blooded murder of 2 NYPD officers.
40-year-old Officer Rafael Ramos and 32-year-old Wenjen Liu were shot inside their vehicle in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn.
In recent years, law enforcement and its officers have been placed under a microscope, analyzed, and dissected by the media. Many questions have been asked, and those looking for answers will take in whatever information is available. Sometimes it's not the full story. The police have lost credibility and face scrutiny in everything they do.
So I am Officer Katie Carver. I was hired with the police department in 2011, so I'm coming up on my 6th year of being an officer. So in 2011, the anti-police movement really started in 2014 after the Ferguson shooting, and it's just kind of snowballed from there.
There is growing outrage tonight after an unarmed African-American teenager was shot and killed by police in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson, Missouri.
Michael Brown was a high school graduate when he and his friend Dorian Johnson were walking down a street in Ferguson, Missouri, when a police officer approached them and asked them to leave the street. The situation escalated, and there was a struggle. Michael Brown was shot several times and was fatally wounded. The exact reasons for the shooting remains unknown, but before the public could get the whole story, media latched onto the incident.
We was around each other. He was a good friend, never spoke down about anybody, didn't really tease anybody about being smaller than him because he was bigger than a lot of people we were around.
The damage had been done. Local news only covered the family side of the story, so the general public only got one side of the story. And so, the fire was started, and chaos began.
He was a gentle giant. He was big. He was careful. He cared for everybody. He was loving, everything. I loved everything about this young man.
Short video clips being filmed of police officers using force on suspects, sometimes excessively, have plagued the internet and oftentimes are all people see of police.
Officer Jared Sargent, I'm the SRO at Poudre High School. This is my 3rd year at Poudre High School, wrapping it up. I've been with the police department about 6 years, and before that I worked for Limerick County Sheriff's Office in a civilian role. Yeah, media portrays law enforcement, generally speaking, in a very negative fashion and a very biased fashion. Unfortunately, I think media and the people that watch mainstream media judge police officers' actions by 6 or 7 seconds of a feed and not the whole encounter. And unfortunately, that's the world we live in.
I am Officer Dexter Rowe with Fort Collins Police Department, and I'm a patrol officer. The social media and the cell phones generally miss out on the conversations that we as law enforcement have with people prior to actions.
My name is Kate Kimball, and I'm the Public Relations Manager and Social Media Person for Fort Collins Police Services. With the advent of social media and digital communication, people have a very small and narrow field of information that they choose to look at, and then they take what they see as gospel truth. So they don't discern real news from news that's sort of just an opinion, not really factual. It all gets blurred together, and I think so when you've got a very loud opinion that's negative, that tends to control the narrative a little bit. And I think the law enforcement community and industry has started to learn that we've got to be a part of that conversation. We can't let someone else tell our story. But it is a challenge when you've got like a 9-second video that people see and they assume, well, that's the whole story. There's always more to the story, and so that's definitely been a challenge in making people wait. I think that's the other thing with digital media, like we get everything we want right now. And investigations and police work and some of those things take a little bit more time. So, you can't always get the whole story right away, and people don't want to wait.
So, my name is Jason Pohl. I am a public safety and accountability journalist at the Fort Collins Coloradoan. What that means is I cover cops, courts, public safety, and accountability type issues for the newspaper and as part of the broader USA Today enterprise. What those short video clips lack is context about what happened before, what happened after, and before you know it, you can have these videos getting ahead of the facts. All people are interested in is the visuals. They're not interested in, the outcome of the case or what led up to it. And so that has definitely created issues.
Violent, dangerous encounters. In reality, these are few and far between. But people now fear the police. For some are angry. Some people fear and hate the police so much that they take violent actions into their own hands.
In need of comfort, deep in the broken heart of Texas tonight, a dark hour for Dallas. In the bullseye, the police. The shots fired from a parking garage at El Centro College. The gunman firing so rapidly, police at first mistakenly believe there are multiple shooters.
Two snipers, at least two snipers, from elevated positions as the protest rally march ended, began firing upon our officers, ambush style.
9:35 p.m., the first police officer reported killed. Graphic and shocking video shows a man with a gun engaging an officer in a one-on-one gun battle. Another witness with a camera across the street captures this angle. The killer gunning down a policeman in cold blood. At 11:13 p.m., police report a fourth officer has died. Shortly before midnight, police corner a suspect in the college parking garage. They negotiate.
You see him? Right there. Let me zoom in. Yeah. They got him.
He said he was upset about the recent police shootings. The suspect said he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers.
Sniper, he shot 4 cops. I'm not, you hear it. He's shooting right now.
After so much bloodshed, police decide to end the standoff with an unusual tactic.
We saw no other option but to use our bomb robot.
A robot closing in on the suspect and detonating a bomb, killing him.
Other options would have exposed our officers to grave danger.
This morning, officials raised the tragic toll. 12 officers shot, 5 dead. 2 civilians were also wounded. This unforgettable image, police officers at Baylor Medical Center saluting the victims in blue.
The media plays into this sentiment. Frankly, newsworthy media is violent and controversial, and police brutality feeds into this.
I think these days media tends to portray law enforcement as distant and hostile, so kind of emotionally distant, just not caring and not connected, and hostile. Obviously, we've seen that portrayal of them in the media these days.
It's complicated because on the one hand, I think journalists are doing a lot of the same things that law enforcement is doing, which is working with the public and trying to give people a sense of community and sort of drive that point home. At the same time, there's sometimes an antagonistic relationship as journalists work to hold those in power accountable. It's one of the core tenets of journalism. And so at times, that can result in some butting of heads between journalists and those in law enforcement.
The only time somebody will ever have police interaction or see a police officer is when they see those videos, is when they see a police officer throwing somebody to the ground. Something of us because of what they've seen in the media. Not the fact that they've never met me before, they don't know what type of officer I am, but they automatically have this bias in their head of what I'm gonna be like simply by the uniform I wear.
Definitely a challenge to get the most complete story available to print as fast as possible, and I think the internet has only exacerbated that. Nowadays we provide a lot of times real live time coverage of things that are happening in the community, and that's great for readers. I mean, if you're wondering what's going on down the street, why there's yellow tape up and why there's a whole bunch of cops that have gone screaming by your house, you can go online and find out what's happening. And as more information becomes available, we have a duty, and we've worked really hard to get that information out there as timely as possible. However, at the end of the day, we're still not going to know every single thing that happened in that incident, and we have a deadline each night when we have to, we call it put the paper to bed, basically hit send on everything and say, okay, the newspaper is going to come out. There's nothing more we can do about this. We'll have to follow some more in the morning. So it's constantly evaluating what you know, what you don't know, and what you want to know. And there's multiple sides to every story. There's multiple stories to every story. And just sort of being smart about what you have and what you don't have, and realizing that no story ends after one day, or very few end after one day. So there's always going to be opportunity to do follow-ups.
Because of incomplete versions of information that are readily available through technology, such as social media and online publication, it is easy for journalists to make fast news that may have inaccuracies.
I do think that the advent of social media, digital communication, cell phones has certainly created a platform for some misinformation about law enforcement.
I think that the popularity of cell phones and the capability of cell phones has added a little bit of fuel to it.
People can have videos and then edit it down and then post it online, YouTube, whatever, to show what a police officer did. It's really fueled, I think, a lot of police hatred in our country.
But on the other hand, it's also created a really good channel for us in the law enforcement community to share part of our story as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it's been helpful and hurtful. I think it's just kind of a constant. It's something we have to keep up with every day.
So what social media has done is it has created an instant outlet for viral content. And what viral content often lacks, whether that's an officer-involved shooting or someone potentially getting, arrested in a very forceful way.
Selling news is another reason for violent portrayal of the police. News and reporting is a business, and violence sells.
Definitely some coverage, or a fair amount of coverage, quite frankly, of law enforcement and law enforcement officers that is negative. And in some ways, I think the reason behind that is because, frankly, good news doesn't sell. People don't have an interest in the good news stories. And so if there's a news story coming out of a law enforcement agency, very rarely will it be, Officer so-and-so hanging out at the street corner passing out ice cream to kids on a hot summer day. That's not news. News is when you have issues that are potentially damaging to the department or affecting the community or in some way having an impact on the broader public. So that's what the foundation of news is. And I think at times you definitely see, especially in television news more than print media, this antagonistic relationship where it's sort of this us versus them, law enforcement versus the press, law enforcement versus reporters. And I don't think it has to be that way, but I think it is that way because in a lot of circles, those visual elements, especially for TV, are what get people's interest and keep people's interest. And when you only have 30-second to a minute sound bites, you lose the context. And so I think that loss of context in the broader picture is where that antagonistic relationship comes from.
These few isolated incidents are far from an accurate depiction of the full demographic of police officers across the country.
Hands down, the best part of my job is working with cops all the time. They're incredible people. I literally stand up straighter and have better posture when I'm around them. There's just something about hanging out with people who have that level of integrity and the kinds of sacrifices they make every day. It's really a joy to tell their story and an honor to be a part of that community.
The best part of my job is the opportunity to positively affect change in people or to influence people in a positive way.
Yes, I'm actually a citizen of the community. I want to help other people. That's why I got into it. Not to make a bunch of arrests and to get people, in trouble or whatever. I wanted it because I wanted to help the people who went through it.
I've been here working at the Fort Collins, Colorado for about 3 years, and in that time I've met dozens and dozens of local law enforcement officers. And there's definitely this presumption that reporters and cops don't get along, and I would say in my experience that's very much not the case. I'm on a first name basis with lots of law enforcement officers here in the community. I know many of them quite well, and we have a very professional working relationship. There's things that I need to do my job. There's things that they need to do their job. We realize that there's going to be some issues that inevitably arise, but by and large, I think we have a very good working relationship that benefits Fort Collins more broadly.
Quite frankly, I have the best job in the entire city. I get to work at a high school, and so I get to interact with kids day in, day out. For me, I get to work on the safety of the school, but I also get to build relationships with students. And it's awesome when you get through a full school year and you have kids who are on the fence of not graduating or on the fence of getting placed in jail eventually, and getting to see them graduate and get through school and have a positive relationship with kids. So that's kind of my favorite part of the job. But
these are the people who lay down their lives every day for the betterment of mankind. The modern knights, the gladiators, the warriors, they are the ones who protect our cities, our states, our nation. They are those who send the beasts fleeing. They are those who keep livelihoods intact. Though they may have great power, they carry it with pride. They are not hailed, not praised, but do the work of kings because they know what is right. These guardians fight day in and day out for the protection and peace of those whose names they do not even know. And when the day is done, they shake hands and wipe the mud off their boots and know that on that day, in that instant, they made the world a better place. And they walk proudly, knowing their blood runs blue.